Trinity. I searched and I searched, strange books of men in the Revelation. Look what I find. And Selassie is the serve the living God and live. Let him cast off Rastafari works. No, no. Let him cast off Rastafari works.
I thought of introducing you with yourself, but I thought, no, let somebody else introduce you. I hope I don't embarrass him when I play one of your tracks, so I'm sorry. I can't pretend I don't know the mic, because I do.
People suffer. How long? How long will the people struggle? How long? How long will the people have to fight? How long? While the leaders carry on. Promises don't feed hunger belly. Set your traps, you kill, get up in it. Then you lie, then you steal from the poor, you mistreat. But soon will come your day. How long will the children have to cry? How long will they be forgiven? What did they do wrong? How long will they have to fight, destroying their lives? While the leaders carry on. Oh, yeah. Promises don't feed hunger belly. Set your traps, you kill, get up in there. Then you lie, then you steal from the poor, you mistreat. But soon will come your day. Your children, children, children. Tell
magnificent Sister Itana, who I was very fortunate to see last year when she toured with the Great Morgan Heritage. Sister Una wasn't with Morgan Heritage, but Sister Itana wasn't replacing Sister Una. She was there in her own right. Yeah, the two tracks I just played by Sister Itana is from her I Rise album. And the first track was called Selassie is the Chapel. And the second track was called How Long? Putting that question, you know, how long is our leaders going to keep us in this situation? Yeah. Okay, my sister. Wow. What I was suggesting off mic was that just give the Omega radio listeners out there some idea of a brief as you can be, really, of how, you know, some of the works you used to do when you were residing in the UK. And I know you've done a lot of work. It's sometimes hard to remember everything, but whatever you feel that you want to share with the listeners. And I know that you are on what you're calling an international trod. And if you could just give us some idea of what that entails, I think that's two good starting points, don't you think?
Yeah, give thanks. Give thanks for the opportunity to be here and to share and to be with family again. You know, there is no point if there's no purpose. So for me, I really need to be on real purpose. You want me to introduce myself, and I always I'm stumped when I'm asked to do that, because you know, family, you know, I'm family, we're family. That's why I hold on to the title sister, because you know, frequently people would want to just call me doctor, and I don't believe that if I disconnect from my family that I actually will serve any useful purpose. So I'm Sister Dr. Sandra Richards. The sister is really important, and the sister comes first. It signals to my spirit that I belong and I have a responsibility. In terms of the work that I've been doing, I've been concerned for some time about the way that the African family is positioned. And that's kind of very broad a statement, but if I narrow it down, I'm really interested in our elevation, our empowerment and our elevation. I'm interested and concerned because of my love for us, but also for my, my recognition that no one else is coming to help us. No one's coming to rescue us. Not anybody called Jesus, nobody called Prime Minister, nobody called leader. You know, really we have to be about igniting our own knowledge source, connecting with our divinity and acting appropriately. So in terms of resistance and reparation, which is what you referred to earlier on, we have to be engaged in the process.
Absolutely.
So my work over the years has been about raising an awareness of the situation we're in, because some of us can't believe it. Can't believe that people would be so wicked. Well, if they were historically wicked, why would they not continue to be wicked?
Absolutely.
You know, I
it's
think
a continuum.
it is very much so.
And
I think it hurts our heart to think that people would really
I know.
hate us for no reason.
We can't believe it.
That's right. Other than we're melanin rich.
Yes.
But when you look at the history and look at the facts, the only conclusion you can come to is that the people don't love you.
Absolutely.
And once I came to that realization, my thing was to just alert as many of us as possible and share some strategies and skills to really navigate the space. So if we have to go into the workplace and know that some people are not going to be fair towards us, how do we navigate that? You know, if we're going into relationships, how do we navigate that? If we're going into the school system or into the health service, how do we navigate that? Because the truth of the matter is we can't just relax and say, well, they're going to do their best for us. We have to be about our own knowledge of self. So that's something about what I've been doing over the years.
To be doing your international trod round about African Liberation Day is a very interesting juxtaposition of purposes, don't you think?
Absolutely. For me, English is not my first language, so I listen very carefully to English, to ones who speak in English, and how we combine words to make meaning. And sometimes the meaning making doesn't make sense to me, so I keep challenging things. So even in terms of us speaking about African Liberation Day, it suggests that Africa is liberated, and so we have a day to celebrate that. And we're not yet liberated. We're still in the process of recognizing that there are powers that be.
It's where we'd like to get to.
Absolutely.
Where we are.
It's an aspiration.
It's an aspiration,
Right.
definitely.
So being here at this time is not a mistake. I've come at the time where we are perhaps more in tune to the aspiration of liberation.
Right.
So let us have a conversation about the action, not just a conversation for the sake of a conversation.
I hear you. And is the trod worldwide? Is it got some kind of focus? Is it got some sort of beginning, middle, and end? I mean, how is it being put together?
Okay, so I'll share with you something about the conceptualization of it. But in the first instance, I spend some, let me call it a plantation, because that's what it is. I spend some time at the University of the West Indies, where I offer service in the capacity as Senior Program Officer for Quality Assurance of Graduate Studies and Research. That is my portfolio there. But that is apart and separate from my position as an African woman. I reserve the right to remain an African woman, and the concerns I have about African people in the diaspora is what has led me to have some protected time from the University of the West Indies to combine quality assurance with my concern and my love for the elevation of African peoples. So what I've embarked on is what I'm calling a global African research trod. Okay, I'm calling it a trod because a tour sounds kind of glamorous. And whilst there may be some excitement in there.
So some glamour go on, sister.
Yeah, because we're a glamorous people.
Of course, we can't help it. We just do, yes.
But we've been trodding this earth for quite some time now.
I hear that.
And the experience of Africans, specifically in the education systems, or what is commonly known as school, offers me some concern. It seems to me that not just here in the UK, but almost wherever we are, colonial powers or Eurocentric paradigms are applied to African people that don't necessarily work in the interest of African people.
Definitely.
So if it is that I want to see our elevation, we really need to look at this and have some conversations. So that's what this research is about. It's about having conversations about diasporan Africans' experience of schooling. And I will be having conversations in the Caribbean, in the Americas, in the UK, and if I can extend it to Europe, I will do so, and on the continent of Africa, because that is where we reside. And it seems, based on the early information that I'm receiving, that our experiences in the schooling system is not too dissimilar.
This you know those rare times in your life sometimes when you have a brainwave. I've just had a brainwave, and I'm going to share it with the sister doctor now. TROD, TROD, could stand for traveling round our diaspora.
Give thanks. Let me tell you that now. Right now.
So that I was sitting in my head thinking, what the hell does trod really mean? You know, and then all of a sudden this has come to me. I hope that helps, sis.
You know what? That is a gift. That is a gift that you have just bestowed on me, because as it came to me, I was like, well, what does it stand for? What could this, the people make synonyms? No synonyms?
Pseudonyms. It's a pseudonym.
They create
Yes.
abbreviations.
Yes.
And I was very careful not to imply something that isn't what I'm about. And that is perfect. This is divine intervention live on the radio.
Tell me about
right
it.
here.
Big radio studio.
I love that. Traveling around our diaspora.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
that's
yes.
what I'm on.
Yeah.
That's clearly what I'm on. Okay, global African research traveling around our diaspora. Sounds good to me. I'm going to include that.
Yeah, well, that's just. I thought I'd share that with you, sis. I thought I'd share that with you.
Okay, all right. See, I knew I was gonna just being in your presence.
Well,
often does this.
we vibe it a certain way. You know that. Yes, sis.
It's not a mistake actually that whenever I come, I have to touch base with you, because your spirit is such that it channels knowledge, and you've always been able to listen to what is being said, interpret it, and feed back out something useful.
I hear you. Well,
I give thanks.
Next year I'm 70, sis. I've been on the planet a while.
I'm humbled in your presence. Some people can't even reach 21. Imagine.
And tell me about it. Anyway, my sister, carry on with the trod.
Yes. So, the way in which I have conceptualized this is that there will be mixed methodologies. So there will be, I will have discussions with people, which will take different forms. I may have one-on-one interviews. Well, in fact, it started. I've embarked on it. So there have been interviews. There have also been focus group meetings.
Yeah. Are you going to document this in any way?
Absolutely. I've started that already.
Okay.
Yes.
I hear that. So in a sense, like we will benefit from that.
Absolutely.
From that documentation.
This is not something for me. This is something for us.
Right.
Because if there's no us, then there is no me.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, what I'm seeing, even since I published my earlier work called The Way We See It, what I'm seeing is that in the schooling system there's been little change. There's been the manipulation of words, but our children are still being excluded.
Window dressing.
There's still a tendency to have little I want to couch my words correctly now. There's little regard for cultural nuances when it comes to melanin-rich folk.
Excellent.
All right?
Excellent.
Commonly known as racism and white supremacy.
Yes. Yes.
So that's, the approach that I'm taking is to listen to ones of us who reside in these various jurisdictions, in these spaces, and get a sense of what's going on, but not just to document what is happening to us, but to document what our response to it is, because many of us have set up educational responses so that we can save our children. So we're not just sending our children to a school system that pathologizes us, marginalizes us, is punitive in terms of how it applies notions of discipline. Many of us are familiar with the term pupil referral unit, but we may not be familiar with the current practices, such as putting our children in isolation units. So we send our children to school, and our children are purposely separated from their peers and put into isolation units. Now that to me sounds very similar to a period in history that people don't want to talk about.
Absolutely. Called slavery.
It is a period of
one
enslavement.
is physical and one is mental.
Well, and in our schooling system, unfortunately, while there's a lot of good teachers, and one could argue a lot of good schools, there are too many situations where our children are being subjected to something that is not too dissimilar from that which used to happen during a period of enslavement.
Agreed. Totally. Wow. And they say that any community that cannot look after its young and its elders is really not going to be around for too long.
Here's
You
the
know,
thing, though.
because that's your future and your past, if you want to call it that. Although we don't look at the past in those kind of terms, but you know what I'm saying is that the interest. If you're not looking after your children's interests, you're not basically interested in your future. Is what I'm saying.
And it's
Enough.
a really good point.
Enough.
What I want to add to these conversations, and that's partly what makes it difficult, is, you know, we have to recognize some truths that are hard for us to recognize. And one of those truths is that schools were never set up for us to attend.
That's true.
You know,
That's true.
melanin rich people have never been considered human.
Yep.
So schools were not set up for us. They were set up for the privileged. So when we attend them, whatever happens to us in them is not of major concern to many of the people who drive this schooling system. And, you know, it's quite topical that right now we have a new birth in a certain household, which is the topic of conversation in the UK. You know, one Harry and one Meghan have given birth to one child. Mm-hmm. And the amount of abuse that is being thrown at that couple and that child just is another revelation. Absolutely. In terms of how some of us are viewed. As long as you're melanin rich, it's true. You are perceived in a particular way.
It's very true.
You are game for people just to throw all kinds of abuse, and they're not even trying to be discreet about it.
In Jamaica we call it dirty water, sis. No, exactly. They're not. That's the whole point. They're not even trying to be discreet.
Nope.
You know, it's like they don't give a monkeys. You know what I mean? It's like monkeys. Oh my Lord, that's terrible. But you know what I mean? They just don't care. You know, they just don't care. I mean, last night I was listening on the radio, and they were really trying to say, are we really that racist? And some brother came on and said, well, yeah, you are. I mean, just kind of face up to it. And then the brother trotted out, you know, Queen Charlotte and the fact that this is not the first, you know, mixed race person that's going to be within the royal family, and just basically giving them some kind of historical education around, you know, around this whole kind of, and they just it's to be honest with you, a lot of the times I have to turn off the media. I find it so depressing, you know. And one of the things that I don't watch television. If I see it for 2 minutes, I'm freaking out. I can't imagine watching it, kind of spending hours and hours in front of it.
It's worse than something called information overload. It's actually an assault on your
Precisely.
So, you know, some of us who are doing work to get an understanding of alternative frames of reference, when we begin to hear the propaganda coming through the Western media houses, we just can't stomach it, and that's why we reach for the off button now, because it's like anything, something that starts coming at you that is not good for your system. As long as you have a reasonable level of wellness, because I argue that we've all been affected by a certain period in history.
To different degrees.
Yes. But if you have a certain degree of wellness, you will reach for the control to turn off whatever it is that's assaulting you. So increasingly we are turning off the radio and turning off the TV and switching when they introduce adverts when we're online, you know, because there's that kind of very, sometimes it's not so subtle way of introducing things to you when you're trying to do something else. So you'll be online looking at something on YouTube or whatever, and up will come an advert which, you know, is based on things that I don't even want to go into right now. But can I encourage us to re-language as well?
Of course.
Because when you say the royal family, it makes it sound like the royal family here is the royal family in the world, and they are not.
No, I agree.
And they're certainly not our royal family.
No.
And they're certainly, you know, the school system is certainly not our sister.
I hear that.
And our young people are certainly not theirs. So, you know, there is this separation in terms of the well-being of our young people. So I'm encouraging us to be mindful and to relanguage,
I hear that.
so that we don't perpetuate notions that when we speak of the royal family, we're talking about some people around here.
I hear you. I hear you.
Not all of us live here, and we
hear
should
you.
not see this place as the only place where
I
we
hear you.
reside as
I
African
hear you.
people.
Especially when you're on an international trot.
Let me tell you.
Anyway, let's just break this for there for a moment and just put a track on, yes?
Mama may have, Papa may have, but God
Can you just check if anybody's phone, they know any more questions are coming from